Australian psych rock group King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard have just released their 14th studio album. This band's quick but inventive fashion of writing and releasing strong records has proven them to be one of the most extraordinary and hardworking bands in the music scene today. In 2017, they grew in popularity during their quest to release 5 albums that same year, blowing away fans and expanding their music methodologies, showcasing some of the most creative and innovative ideas in rock. Aside from their brilliant studio works, the band delivers extraordinary live performances, overall offering anything and everything they can to not only make music, but establish an amazing precedent for independent bands. With that said, Gizzard fans now have a brand new album to dive into. Today, I plan on uncovering the messages hidden within the album, or at least to restate and reorganize what has been deduced thus far on some of the major tracks. There are many angles of theme that exist within a typical Gizzard record, which is why I will be specifically analyzing 2 things: humans versus nature and nature versus technology. Many direct clues from the earlier release tracks off the album, as well as the artwork, contribute to the general idea of environmentalism. Concerning this theme, I believe that this album is delivering not only a general awareness for the well-being of the planet, but an idea that the environment has primary influence on the development of humanity. The official album artwork alone depicts an embodiment of humanity across Gizzard records, with flames burning at its feet, searing the grass all around and engulfing the area with flames and smoke. The detail of the burning fishing line also leads me to conclude that the damage towards the environment has been inflicted by this humanity. The title track, Fishing for Fishies, includes interesting lyrics that further support this idea of humanity's chains that bind nature. This speaks directly to the tradition of man and how the impact of humans has left a giant environmental and cultural footprint. What was once an act of survival has become sport, and man grows to idealize this, as well as other hunting or cultivating practices beyond necessity. The song recognizes the paradox of its argument as ego tied in knots and being fate, to suggest that although it is wrong and unnecessary to treat the earth as if we own it, it is merely commonplace amongst humans. This poses an argument of responsibility for those who did this damage to the earth. Boogeyman Sam introduces our first instance of boogieing on this record, which also finds its way onto 2 other tracks on the album. Rather than the term only refer to dancing, I feel as though its similarity to The Boogeyman clearly relates to the overall themes of terrorism towards nature, using the root boogie as a cognate that could link the meaning of his character. In the following tracks, The Birdsong and Plastic Boogie, the lyrics overstate the influence of humankind and our impact on the planet. The entire song fulfills itself as an example of how the creations by man have affected the natural order, reinforcing our human positions as godlike over Earth, bending both nature and reality for the other species that inhabit it. The vulgar message of Plastic Boogie delivers a rude awakening to further the notions of the Birdsong, shaming humans for the overly excessive use of plastic and how it has damaged and will kill the environment. The final line of the second verse reads, "It's like a vendetta against our Mother Nature." These final lines of the track push the listener further back into this unpleasant discovery of reality that has been masked by the absurdly commercial state of the modern world. And just as we pass through the first half of this ever-shaming album, there is yet more to be highlighted in The Cruel Millennium, which stabs the culture of newer generations and their addiction to technology, as well as its social effects on relationships and living a natural, human life. The Cruel Millennial critiques both the nature of millennials and the practice of bashing on the millennial generation that can easily be identified with those who fall into Gen Z or before, the Echo Boomers. One interesting detail that I found was that the user 6100 on Genius interpreted the following line, "Berenstain Bears being a glitch in the Matrix," as a clever reference to the Mandela effect, a theory that discusses how some memories do not match documented history, which is meant to support the theory of multiverse collision. This detail does add to the general theme of cultural boundaries throughout the rest of the album, adding dispute in regard to what is right and wrong in context of nature, or more generally, what is natural in identity. Reals Not Real's specific structural placement in the track listing leads me to think that it's responding or expanding on the message of the previous track, which has remained generally consistent thus far. From what I can hear, this track is breaking down the fake plastic reality that encompasses the values of young lives that have grown up in a world of technological advancement. This could also be aimed to show the perspectives of those young people who have opened their eyes to see the cruel society that has raised them to be inherently blind. The metaphorical use of a pretty picture that has been painted without love, all for the sake of happiness, exhibits how modern generations are lacking in their knowledge of purpose. The end of the first verse even clearly states, "I'm afraid that you're lacking some free will." This fear is one exemplified by the lack of critical thought in the world today. This message is one of the more real conflicts in the world that I have yet to see be signalized in recent media. A lot of this theme is also being discussed throughout the entirety of the album, remarking on how the reality of today is based on the false spread of misinformation to deem the public more susceptible to the world of mass marketing and the general control of the people. The specific style of this song as a sweet and singing melody plays on its rhetorical meaning, serving as a greater metaphor as to how we ignore the underlying repercussions of our daily consumption, just because it's been neatly packaged and delivered to us with melodic distractions from the sheer truth. As we progress, the tracks begin to get more specific and telling of their meaning. In This Thing, the title is a remark on the entirety of the lyrical content, which depicts cultural values of today as cloaking our own personalities to fit into the stressful, demanding social status of utmost equality. This idea of superimposed society reflects the danger of individuality of different persons in the modern world. The song reminisces on simpler times, when greater harmony between people was strengthened by a community's power to listen to each other. This thing showcases how voice has been constricted as a result of technology by means of fitting into a definition that doesn't exist. This thing is truly the concept of ideas being drowned out by the ideas of other people, identifying the strange conflict that arises between those who think differently. The final line states that, "One of us has to ring out that waterlogged falseness that penetrates society one way or another." And with that suspenseful and scary slice of reality, the track drifts into Acarine. This second-to-last track seems to be a metaphor for the impact of the human species on Earth. The lyrics give detail of acarine mites breeding within a honeybee, which contributes to the loss of oxygen as a result of the mites burying themselves into the bee's trachea. Eventually, this leads to the bee's death as it grows weaker, losing oxygen until the mites then consume the blood of the bee itself until the bee dies. This effect of the mites, known as acarine disease, often renders honeybees weak before death, causing them great suffering and in many cases making them unable to fly. If you consider this impact with the theme of humans and their footprint on Earth, the two contribute to a parallel of humans as a parasitic race that never quits taking and never gives back. This resonates well with the meaning behind the previous tracks on the album, further exemplifying the true harm that we have brought to the Earth, through this lonely, suffocating track. Boogie single-handedly approaches the danger of the future regarding a technological nature and mankind, as well as how it will change the way our world is treated forever. Following the aftermath of Acheron, the humans have now been altered to an augmented form of living that leads them to be incapable of influencing their future. This record's embodiment of humanity has misconstrued technology and taken their planet for granted, leading to the replacement of living things with their technological counterparts. These details symbolize mankind's flaw to acknowledge its own shortcomings. At this point, it is too late, and Boogie serves as a warning that nobody will be there to save mankind if we don't stop now to confront our own issues. As evidence from the music video for this track and the title track, the character portrayed by Stu serves as a reflection of humanity, supporting the idea of technology challenging the perspectives of newer generations as they become less and less aware of their own individuality. The simultaneous futuristic themes with the vintage-style music video also contribute to the concept of growth and conflict over several generations of time. All of this intricate symbolism and rhetorical language creatively embodies environmentalism with a flavor of misanthropy, thus pronouncing "Fishing for Fishies" the modern anthem of the devastation of humanity and the consequences of interfering with Mother Nature.
Psych Rock.